A third area that we must engage is this idea of Christian worldview integration in our educational approaches. How do we approach the subjects that we are teaching? So when I was teaching in public university, there was a time when we were discussing love as a class, just the general concept of love and what it meant. And we were discussing the source of love and the definition of love and the application of the goal and result of love. And we were even using ideas from children's books that might be read by second graders. Well, the students, of course, in a public university were all about it. They thought that this was a wonderful discussion, and they were talking about all aspects of love that might concern them. And then I paused as we had opportunity to make kind of a segue in our communication, and I said, you do realize that when people talk about love, you might be talking about people who take love in a very different, violent kind of way. The students were taken aback by this, not realizing that some people, as they define love, don't define love as we define love. And so we were making the point that the definition of love, the source of love, and its application is hugely important, especially from a Hebraic Christian point of view as we think about how we teach our classes and our students, getting them ready for the world that they are going to be invested with. Now, in this slide, you're going to see this source and application idea. A biblical view of love emphasizes an unconditional quality. That is, I am loyal. I am covenantally loyal. I am attached not only to my wife and my family and my colleagues, but I am continually committed to that which I have given myself to. And I'm not just talking about contractual obligations. I'm talking about person to person. I'm talking about person to family and person to institution. A biblical view of love indicates a covenantal loyalty, a commitment, no matter what. I once again encourage you to check out all of those passages on this slide that will take that a little bit further. One of the ways that we think about educational approaches might be having to do with the history of our discipline. So, for instance, if you would compare physics and sociology, just as disciplines, you might be really interested to know how old they might be. Now, if you do a little study, you'll understand, of course, those of you who teach physics already know this, that the understanding of physics is centuries old, maybe even millennia old. But sociology, on the other hand, is quite a new discipline. So when we think about that, how does the age of a discipline matter in how we approach it? We ask the question, how old or new is it? Was the discipline directed by a worldview that might be antithetic to a Hebraic Christian point of view? Those are questions that are important questions, and you might want not only yourself to get after them, but also asking your students to do an assessment about them. Then I would ask, what are the hermeneutics of your discipline? That is, how do we interpret things within our disciplines? So, for instance, as a theologian, I'm going to have a different kind of hermeneutic than maybe the sociologist might have, or the biologist might have, or the person who is involved in social work might have. We all understand and interpret our disciplines from a different point of view, a different framework. So we have to help our students to understand that distinction as well. How does our viewpoint as a Christian matter when it comes to analyzing and then synthesizing these ideas? Ultimately, we are concerned with what's the goal of our discipline. Where does this fit in, the whole understanding of where does this discipline lead? For instance, if you're going to deal with the question of student debt, which is always a concern, not only for the person who is carrying the debt, that might be the bank, but also the person who is responsible to repay it. There are all different kinds of points of view about this repayment of student debt. Ultimately, then, the question becomes in business or finance or commerce, what is the goal of your discipline? Then we need to ask the question, what's the result of our discipline? So if you just take a couple of movie examples here, you might consider Eat, Pray, Love in comparison to Cabrini. Those two movies have a very different point of view. The first, as long as you're happy, is the real consistent concern. In fact, I would add that as long as you're happy is one of those phrases that generally comes across in a lot of culture as we are teaching. And then for Cabrini, we're actually thinking from a very different point of view, a distinctive point of view, a Christian point of view, where we're asking the question, as long as we focus on others, we should be good. That actually is a biblical point of view.